Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is your boy Jay Mason. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Album Cover, where we get inside the entertainment industry with those in the know and give them their flowers while they're here to be celebrated. With me, I have no stranger to the podcast. He's been on several times. You can check out his previous interviews that he's done with me as we talk shop about music. Once again, I got the professor from the Professor's Lounge back in the building with me. The professor, welcome back, bro.
Thank you, bro. I'm glad to be here, stuff, and congratulations on your success as well. It's great to be interviewing you. It's great to be on your show again for a second and third time.
Yes, sir. And it's always been great having you on as a guest and look forward to talking with you. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So the big announcement came on Monday. We're recording this interview on November the 10th. Monday was November the 6th. New Edition just announced that they will be doing a 6-show Vegas residency starting in February of next year. It will go to March of next year. The ticket demands has been so high to where the pre-sale orders have caused Ticketmaster and other third-party sites to crash. They just had to release some more tickets, but as you and I know, the resellers, they ruined the fun for everybody. They snatch up those tickets, jack up the prices, and a lot of fans are getting priced out. So what are your thoughts on New Edition finally getting that Vegas residency, because they had been talked about for years and now it's finally happening? But the downside is that since it's such a limited run for right now, that a lot of fans are getting priced out of going to go see them.
Well, good question, Jarrell. It's long overdue. The fact is that these six guys, who has made it, still making an impact, it's well deserved because the fact that New Edition shows, even though they have R&B and hip hop, they always had that staff class of like the Temptations, the Spinners, who's finally got inducted to Rock and Hall of Fame. It's well overdue now. As far as the tickets, now they should. I think that when it comes to like Vegas, they probably figured they're going to get it. They just want to get some sales, but they don't know that New Edition has a large fan base for them being as a group and as solo artists and with three sprinter groups. So they should have just really they didn't like calculate properly.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like how we were talking prior to the start of the interview that this is probably a test run for them in Vegas, that they're going to start them off at a small venue just to gauge the temperature to see if we do another residency with them, should we put them in a bigger venue? And I believe they're going to be blown away by the pack houses, the ticket sales, and that eventually they'll have to get put into a bigger venue. And it's all about whether they want to go out and come to the fans, or do they want the fans to come to them in one spot, so that way it'll be a win-win for both parties?
That's a good question. I think New Edition, they always care about their fans because they always was about, we want to evolve, but we also want to stay connected to the fans. So I would say for them to do that, for them to get a larger venue and have the fans to come to them, it would be a win-win because the fact is that there's a lot of fans on the West Coast who haven't seen them. And the New Edition has a large fan base over in Australia, UK. They could be able to fly to Vegas. It would be much closer to them. And also being that 500 members, their parents and Bobby and Ralph are grandparents or grandfathers, I think they will be able to perform, but also be able to rest and spend time with their families as well.
Right. Or you can also do it to where it can be a short extended residency where you're not super locked in like a Celine or Wayne Newton or other established Vegas acts that had long residency stays, to where you can do it for a set time, but then have breaks in between where you can go out and tour and then come back to Vegas when it's off touring season for you.
But that's a good idea as well. Yes.
Yeah, because I believe that's what Usher is planning on doing. Speaking of him, he will be headlining the Super Bowl halftime show next year. And the big boom has been thanks to his residency in Vegas, to where celebrities and people all alike have been coming around to Sin City to see him perform. And Usher will put on a good show, and the world will definitely get to see that in February when he headlined the Super Bowl halftime show. So what's your thoughts on Usher finally getting that distinguished honor?
Long overdue, long overdue. The fact is that Usher started out as a teenage performer and he evolved. Because I actually met Usher back in 1994 when I entered the Arista Records, very down to earth. And the fact is that for him to actually, Usher has showmanship. He has showmanship. He has showmanship, and he knows how to give a good show. So it's really great for him to actually perform at a Super Bowl. It goes to show that that when you work hard and you persevere, and you actually have showmanship, things can happen.
Right, and you mentioned you met Usher when you were interning at Arista Records, and I want to go back to his debut album because I know a lot of people felt that that album was totally slept on, but felt that the songs didn't match where Usher was at that time. But he really didn't hit his groove until he hooked up with JD and released My Way. So why do you think Usher's debut album doesn't really get talked about as much, or when he's on tour, I'm not sure if he performs any cuts off of the debut album? It's pretty much My Way and Forward.
That's a good question because when I got the Usher, it seemed like I remember when he did his first single, "Pour Me a Mac." That was a good single because we got a feel of it. But then during that time, the fact is that L.A. Reid was executive producer of the album. He had him work with Puffy. And I guess they was just trying to find out who Usher was, because even when I was speaking with a publicist at the time, all of us was saying, a lot of them saying that it seemed that it was more of a Puffy album than an Usher album. And also, I read in his book, and Usher had to fight because Usher also wanted to be involved with some of the writing. And so Faith was like, "What you get in mind?" So they started talking. So Faith was like, she said, "Just go in the booth and sing the hook." So basically, Usher was back there. He was fighting to say, "Listen, I may be a kid, but I'm not a typical kid. I can sing and dance, and I can write."
Yeah, which is kind of rare because you have a kid in his teens that really want to be hands-on with the process. And typically that's kind of like a gray area for writers and producers, is that you want to make material that's not too young, but not too old either. You want to find that sweet spot. And it's kind of difficult to have a kid really want to have that empowerment first time out and say, "Hey, you don't know anything about this business yet. Let us go ahead and handle it. You go in, you do what you need to do, and let's be done with it."
That's true.
Right. And how you mentioned on the debut album how it definitely had a early bad boy sound, since Diddy's hands was all over that. You also had production on that album by Kyle West, who you can catch my interview on Beyond the Album Cover, available on all streaming platforms. I'll Be Sure, Devontae from Jodeci. So it really had that bad boy feel to it. And personally, I love the album, but I felt when he got with JD, it was where I think JD kind of took the Jam and Lewis approach with Usher, really sat down, really tailor-made songs that suited him and just captured his personality and his strong stage presence.
That is true because I listened to a lot of songs from the first album because I had a copies of it. Like when he did "Can You Get With It," he was singing about sex at a young age, and it was like, what the? Because he went from going back. Then when he did "Think of You," it was just basically him going through like him going through the teenage thing. We don't know what happened. Then the Many Ways. I think that the Many Ways was to start to show Usher's mellow side. There were some songs that I really felt that could have been singles. Like one song, I don't even remember some of the tracks, but it was just there's some other songs that could have been singles. I think if Usher was to perform like certain songs from the album besides "Think of You," it would definitely enlarge its fan base, and it can really show how far Usher has evolved.
Yeah, so definitely sprinkle in maybe one or two cuts from the debut album, then of course go My Way, Confessions, so on and so forth. But you mentioned The Many Ways, and that was one of my favorite cuts off of the debut album. And I felt like the whole style, vibe, and vocals of that song, it felt like it was probably it was approached to Tevin first to probably record it because it had that same feel of "I'm ready," but Tevin might have passed on it. And I'm sure you may or may not know, but there's been rumor or word, I don't know if it's been confirmed or denied, that Can We Talk was originally for Usher. And for some reason or another, Kevin ended up recording it. So So, what do you think about the similarities between some of those records between Tevin and Usher?
Good question. I think that that vocally, see, so a lot of people talk about Usher being the intended, but Usher has a great voice. The fact is that in many ways it was showing Usher's mellow side. Now, and you asked me about Can We Talk, because I didn't even know that it was for Usher originally. Now I think that both of those artists are great singers. I think that it would have worked with both with them. I think at the time when Tevin was doing his album, because when Tevin was doing his second album, he started working with Babyface and Prince, the Michael Walden. Now Tevin revealed in Black Beat Magazine that he originally wanted "Don't Say Goodbye, Girl" to be the first single of the album. But the record label was like, no, we Babyface and Down Syndrome is how it's going with it. And Tevin even said that he tried to have Can We Talk remix, just to have a different vibe, but the remixes wasn't working, so he went back to that. And I just learned that in 2017, Mesa covered her edition of Can We Talk.
And that was also covered by, I believe, a British boy group by the name of Code Red. Can We Talk?
I gotta check that out.
Yeah, and speaking of Arista, just released last month was the Milli Vanilli documentary on Paramount Plus. It felt like they really expanded on what was initially talked about when they did their Behind the Music, which was the initial episode of Behind the Music. And coming away looking at the documentary, you really felt that they were put in a bad spot, and Frank Farian really hung them out to dry.
I agree with you, Jarrell, because when I remember when Milli Vanilli first came out. Now I liked the songs. I'm saying I wasn't like a major fan, but I did like some of the songs. Now, when I read the interview with them, Ebony Magazine, I learned that they was from Germany. I was like, cool, because a lot of artists during that time, like we had like another British and European invasion with pop and R&B singers, singing. So I just assumed that because a lot of artists overseas have soulful pop and pop voices. Now I remember also I remember they did an interview. I think it was with Black Beat or Rhyme Magazine. They was asked them about they sing. So they actually said, they said we do have backing tracks to help us dance, but we do sing live. Now, when that scandal came out, I could admit that it took me a surprise, and it was like, what the heck? Because I was my first year junior college. So I was watching, like I was always watching different shows, about the situation. But when they said that, listen, we wanted to sing, but we signed a contract. And then when I heard them actually sing for real, my thing was, these guys can sing. They just had pop voices, and they should have had more material for their voices.
Right, and it definitely felt that Arista was complicit in it, because once they saw, hey, they're making money over here, best-selling album, #1 hits, selling out tours, and then of course came the Grammy nomination, then winning Best New Artist, and then the Grammy getting revoked. It just kind of showed that maybe if Milli Vanilli had not popped off here in the US, then this probably would have been a blip on the radar.
I agree, because I watched the documentary, Jarrell. I watched all of them, Behind the Music and the current one, and they was even saying that they did not want to win a Grammy. Now, like most artists, any artist, they make the first thing they say, I want to win a Grammy. But for them to say, we don't want to win a Grammy, we don't want to win a Grammy. Because I was just thinking that if they would have just performed on the American Music Awards, where sometimes artists, they do sing live and they lip sync, they probably would have, I would say they probably would have got some pull, because at the time, it was like either you perform on the American Music Awards or the Grammys. Now, the fact is that these cats, they knew that if they got a Grammy, it was going to get deep. And the fact is that Frank Farian, they think I got some things that I'm a fan. Remember Jermaine Jackson's song "Don't Take It Personal"?
Yep.
I was reading the book called the R&B #1 R&B hits. Turns out that the surfers who wrote the song, they offered it to Frank Farian and Milli Vanilli. Now they wanted to produce a song with Frank, but Frank was like, send me the tracks, I'm gonna do it in Germany. And they was like, no, we don't work like that. They say either you come to the States or we'll fly to Germany. Frank refused, so Clive Davis had to intervene. And he was like, look, this is a major project. He was like, listen, if he was like this, either Frank comes to the States and work with us, or we'll fly to Germany. They said we will go to Germany, to help produce a song. So Frank refused. They said, okay, what, anybody else? So they gave it to Jermaine. And it became Jermaine's second #1 R&B hit as a solo artist.
Wow, a little bit of backstory and surface at that time. White hot, white hot, white hot, white hot. And like you mentioned, how had it not been for the Grammy, it probably would have been a fly by night thing. But the Grammys carries a lot of weight when you get that golden gramophone that solidifies you as being one of the top, the Don Dada, the cream of the crop. And for them to pretty much go through that witch hunt in the media, looking back on it in hindsight, it felt like it was blown out of proportion.
I would say yes, because the thing is that they went after Fabrice and Rob made Messi. They went after those two. And they was even saying, look, okay, we wanted to sing, but we was told, okay, you know what? We was told we were going to sing, and then we was told we couldn't, and we signed the contract. We was in debt. And the fact is that they had to prove themselves. And I remember watching when they watched the press conference when they was asked, when they came in and they said when Fabrice started rapping, spitting, and then Rob singing on live, the audience was pissed, but they had to give them a prize. I remember they were clapping because their thinking was everybody was saying, shit, they can really sing. What the hell? And the fact is that they got with Michael Jackson's vocal coach, Seth Ridge, for him to come and say, these guys have the capability of doing what we're supposed to do. I don't know why they didn't allow them to do what they're supposed to, but they have the capability.
Yeah, and then the funny thing about that was after that press conference, or prior to, Frank got ahead of it and said, okay, I'm going to pull back the curtain and show you how the sausage was made.
Oh, yeah, because the fact is that he was scared that they was going to, because they told him that if you let us sing, or we going to tell the truth. And the fact is that they got lawyers. I think, Frank got scared. And then also think that I'll look at the documentary. I mean, it was exploitation of, Black people and women, because even the original female artist, the female vocalist who sang background, when Frank decided I'm gonna have the real million, he didn't even have them on tour. He just hired some light-skinned Black females to go on tour and lip sync.
Mm-hmm. And I didn't even know about Boney M until the documentary, where he pulled that same stuff a couple decades prior to Milli Vanilli, but because they weren't really big in the US, it didn't really catch anybody's attention.
Right, because I didn't even know anything about Boney M until recently, before the documentary, because I'm always doing research and it just happened to come up in the feed. I mean, but the sad thing is this, it was just sad that Rob, he actually died and stuff, because his life was really tragic, because for him being, for him not knowing his biological parents and being adopted by a white family, and he had to experience racism and colorism, and I think that really gave him that the drive to, what, I'm going to show you. And the fact is that, because the way that he was talking, he had to really show his heart side, because it was really painful that he had to die the way he did. But I think the thing about it is that Fabrice, even though Fabrice has said, listen, he was getting deep in the drugs. We parted. It was like this. I wasn't like Fabrice was like, I can't be your friend. But his thing was, I'm not going down that road. Come with me. But Rob, he already had demons that he had before he got in the industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when you already have trauma, insecurities, and you layer that on top with fame, then it just exacerbates it. And then when the rug is pulled from under you, you can have a hard time. And it turned out, he did, and unfortunately, he ended up passing away. So R.I.P. Rob Pilatus. And right around 89, 90, another act that was white hot all over the world, set the stage for the boy band teen pop phenomenon of the late 90s, early 2000s. New Kids on the Block. They just recently announced that they'll be doing a tour this upcoming summer, which is a newer version of their Magic Summer Tour that they did back in 1990 to support Step by Step. But on this time around, it will be with them, DJ Jazzy Jeff, and Paula Abdul. So your take on this new tour and how New Kids are just continuing to just add on to their legacy and showing why they, along with New Edition, set the standard for every boy band to come after them since.
Good question, because New Kids on the Block, the fact is that they themselves, the fact is that they had always acknowledged, we was influenced by R&B, soul, and pop music, and the fact is that, like Usher, they have showmanship. They have showmanship, and they care about the fans, and they didn't forget who they come from. And the fact that they was for Paula Abdul. I mean, next year it's going to be like the 35th anniversary of her hits Straight Up. And the fact is that Paula Abdul was actually torn after she went through issues with her vocals, and she had like injured her back, and she had a nerve issue. But for Paula Abdul to actually say, what, I'm still going to perform. I don't have no new music out there, but I'm going to perform. DJ Jazzy Jeff, I mean, an innovative DJ. And the fact is that New Kids on the Block and Paula Abdul love hip hop. To have the rapper who actually was the first rap DJ to win American Music Award and a Grammy, go on tour, that's epic.
Right. And speaking of the Grammys, I believe the first rap Grammy was awarded in '89, and how they just recently take a Grammy salute special to the 50th anniversary of hip hop, which will air next month. And it's funny how things come full circle with how the Grammys are now saluting hip hop, but back when they did the first rap Grammy Award, it wasn't even televised. It was on the pre-televised portion, and a lot of the rappers of the day ended up boycotting the Grammys. So what's your take on seeing the Grammys now saluted to where it was fighting to try to get a seat at the table, and how hip hop 50 years today is the world's most popular genre of music, to where we have generations of people that grew up on this genre that was something out of nothing?
Good question. I remember when that boycott happened, because I was 11th grade. I was a junior in high school. How they was boycotting because they were saying, why can't you just show us getting the award and stuff? It's whack. And then Kool Moe Dee actually appeared on the show and was presented with Ken White. And I remember he went up there and he freestyled and introduced Ken White. So I think that the fact is that Kool Moe Dee decided, what, I'm not going to protest. I'm going to go on the show, but I'm going to show you why we need to have a seat in this auditorium. And the fact is that, and another thing too, JC boycotted the Grammys and Nights when they were going to nominate the best rap album of the year. He boycotted that. He boycotted, and then now you see, I think they started to see that, these rap hip hop is making money, and a lot of the kids liking it. And it wasn't just like the black kids. It was when they saw that the women was liking hip hop, the white kids was liking hip hop, and members of the LGBT community was liking hip hop. That's when it was like, okay, we gotta be inclusive.
Right. And you mentioned how during the show, Kool Moe Dee freestyle when introducing Karen White. But if you go back and look at the performance by the late Sinead O'Connor, she had the Public Enemy logo in her head. So she was always down with hip hop. I mean, she had MC Lyte on the Put Your Hands on Me record, and how she really stood for something, and she wasn't going to be the music industry's puppet. And she pretty much said, I'm not going to play your game, even though Nothing Compares to You became a big hit. I'm not going to be the pop darling you want me to be. I'm going to speak out on issues. And when she tore that picture up of the Pope when she performed War on SNL, that pretty much started where she was on the music industry's ish list.
Oh yes, because I remember I didn't know much about Sinead. I remember seeing her on Video LP. They did on some video show on BET. And I remember the song, but then when she came out with Nothing That Compares to You, and I remember hearing the song, but then I remember about about the anthem. But then when she was on the MTV Video was when she talked about, she would say, why is it that, why is it that, you want a song, why are we singing a song that's talking about unity when there's still racism and sexism? And let's just say this, a lot of the Black communities was rooting for, once she said that, it was like, you go, and the thing about her ripping a picture with the Pope, the fact is that she was bringing an issue about people being abused in church. Now, and I guess their thing is this: how dare this woman, this bald-headed white woman, is speaking of, basically, like I said, they wanted her to probably be the pop dog, sing about, oh, I want a man and stuff, and oh, my baby, baby. Her thing was this: I'm going to speak up, because she wanted to empower people, and they didn't like that about her.
Right. She definitely was gonna speak loud, not speak down, and pretty much tell the truth and stand on her toes about it. And of course, with her coming from Ireland, we've seen a lot of early material with U2, how they were speaking out on issues, Sunday Bloody Sunday, Pride, about the assassination of MLK, about how they really were deep in speaking out on their issues and not willing to conform to the pop standards.
That's true, because that's the thing. Whenever an artist, speaks, to speak out on issues, it's sort of like a double-edged sword. They get respected, but they get they get blasted because they think that, because music is supposed to make you feel good. Like I said, when I do my podcast, I always announce that, hey, I would play some songs that want to make you get turned up in the dance floor, and when you get and when you get turned up in the bedroom. But I like to play songs that's going to uplift you, because we still experiencing racism, sexism, homophobia, heterophobia, colorism, classism. And the thing is this, that's the thing too. Music is good. Music is a tool for healing.
Right. And with nothing that compares to you, I want to backtrack a minute to Sinead O'Connor. And I was surprised that they were able to get the clearance from Prince to record it, because that was originally done by The Family on their one album that they released, The Family, another splinter act from the Prince family tree, which featured I believe it's Wendy or Lisa, can't remember which one, but that's the sister. And then St. Paul Peterson, who was in Purple Rain and the Time Band, Jelly Bean, and Jerome. So that was originally released on the Family's album, and then Sinead O'Connor ended up recording that, and it became a worldwide international smash. Now, to backtrack back to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, you mentioned the Spinners, and New Edition paid tribute to the Spinners, performing a 3-song medley of the Spinners hits, and how they're a direct descendant of the Spinners and groups that preceded them, like the Shy-Lights, Blue Magic, the Whispers, the Temptations, because that's the school that Brooke Payne comes from. And your thoughts on the Spinners finally getting into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
What took them so damn long? They, of all the Motown groups, along with the Marvelettes, who need to be inducted, the Spinners, I was a kid when my mother had that album, Mighty Love, and she used to play that album and the Rubber Band Man. That was one of my favorite songs. That do 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 do. But then, doing research later on, it was amazing how they was with Motown, and even though they was just as talented, they didn't get the promotion. And then when they did, it's a shame, they get, they had the breakthrough. Then when they moved to Atlanta, it was Aretha Franklin who was the one that suggested that when their contract expires, to come to Atlanta. And that's when they really, and they had originally Motown Philly, because with Boyz II Men with Motown Philly. The Spinners is the original Motown Philly act, because he was a group from Detroit, linked up with the late great Tom Bell and the late great Linda Creed, who needs to be recognized as well. But and they create some timeless classic, like Could It Be a Fall in Love, Love Don't Love Nobody, and Sadie, which was, I later learned, was sampled by Tupac for Dear Mama.
And Tom Bell, Linda Creed, may they rest in peace, part of the Philly soul sound with Philly International and all the great songs that are produced out of Sigma Sound Studios. Rest in peace, Bunny Siegler and all the great songwriters and producers to come out of Philly. And you mentioned when the contract was up for the Spinners to go to Atlantic after it didn't really work out with Motown until It's a Shame finally popped. And of course, that was sampled when Moni Love did It's a Shame. I believe that was on the Class Act soundtrack. But the lead vocalist at the time of the Spinners, along with Bobby Smith, was G.C. Cameron. And when the contract was up for them to go to Atlantic, because he was still under contract with Motown, he couldn't join them on the move. So he referred his cousin, Felipe Wynn, to join the group.
That is true. Yeah, because I learned that JC, he was also dating Gwen Gordy at the time. So she was his manager and he had the contract. And I even learned that on song that they was like really, and Eddie Kendricks was the one that was like, y'all need to get him. And Felipe is was a talented singer because his voice was very powerful and mellow. And I'm just learning that he used to always like ad lib with the top of his head when they were recording. He was always coming up with, like ad libbing. Even when he did the concerts, he was coming off like some of the rappers doing. And then, like I said, with Bobby Smith singing and Harry, the original one who survived, they was like the main ones who sang. I guess that because Bobby and Felipe's voices were similar, everybody thought it was Felipe, but they had to let them know, no, these were the main singers. And then you had the bass singer. Now, because they was able to sing like the romantic ballads and songs about heartache, and they also had some good dance music too, some dance music as well. Because I love their music. I've seen another thing too, when Felipe decided to leave, which was on a good move, he was replaced by John Edwards. And this is when, at the time, when Tom Bell decided he was going to move on to other things, Spinners had to revamp and having John. It was like how when Dennis Edwards, joined the Temptations, and when Gene Terrell and Sherry Payne joined the Supremes, they was able to bring new life and truth. And the fact is that John was able to, sing like they saw Working My Way Back to You, Forgive Me Girl, Forgive Me Girl. It was a big hit in Cupid. He was able to help bring life into the group. Now, I am disappointed that JC was not, inducted along with the rest of the original members. I understand, okay, they may have had a film with him not joined to Atlantic, but it was the contract. And I think JC was smart to know, if I try to break this contract, I'm gonna get sued. So I really feel that, that they should at least, just including him in, because he sang on a breakthrough hit, It's a Shame,
which was produced by Stevie Wonder, and I believe that was also co-written by him and is it Sarita Wright?
Yes, that's true.
Say. And I believe they also did I Can't Help It for Michael Jackson for Off the Wall. And I believe when I was looking at the Showtime documentary about Off the Wall, Stevie had said that originally, I believe it was supposed to be on one of his albums, but felt like it didn't fit. So they ended up giving that to Michael, but back once again to GC. Had he not left Motown, we wouldn't have gotten It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday, which he did for the Cooley High movie soundtrack, which was later made popular by a little group out of Philadelphia. You might have heard of them, Nate, Mike, Sean, and Wanye, better known as Boyz II Men. And also, another fun fact from for that record, I don't know if you know this, but when I interviewed Jazz from the group Whistle, he had told me that they were originally wanted to do that record, but what ended up happening was, I believe Boyz II Men ended up beating them to the punch.
I had no idea.
Yeah, Whistle had wanted to remake It's So Hard to Say Goodbye to Yesterday, but Boyz II Men ended up beating them to the punch. And that was another group that was very, very underrated. Whistle, they were on Select Records. Biggest hits was Just Buggin', Barbara's Bedroom, and their great rendition of the Heatwave classic, Always and Forever.
I gotta definitely check that out. I remember hearing Whistle. I remember hearing one or two of their songs, but I'm gonna have to check out their catalog.
Yeah, definitely that. A lot of their stuff was done by the late Kengo Kid from UTFO, rest in peace. And how, when you think about that time period, mid 80s, late 80s, you had all these different genres cross pollinizing, and how it was a smorgasbord of different genres. Everybody's taking from one, going to the other. And especially when with hip hop, by that point being officially on record commercially for, I believe, 6, 7 years at that point, because I believe Rapper's Delight came out in what, 79?
Yeah.
So commercially, hip hop was on record, I want to say 7 years, even though they said there were hip hop records prior to Rapper's Delight. A lot of people recognize Rapper's Delight as kind of like the first tree that fell in the forest for hip hop. And what was your thoughts on seeing DJ Kool Herc get inducted, and to just think this man took a culture from Jamaica, the dubbing, toasting, sound system culture, integrated it with this burgeoning genre called hip hop, started in the basement for a back to school party at 1520 Sedgwick Avenue, to where there's classes, books, literature, clothing, pretty much anything that you could think of that's tied into hip hop ties back to him. So what was your thoughts on seeing them getting inducted and being here to see this thing start in that little basement in that building to where it is now?
I think it's really amazing. That's how you celebrate, something, something very spectacular. To have him be inducted into Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it was really great. I loved it. It was really great to learn about how, and I heard about a little part. Here it is, a little party that happened, something that was grassroots to become a multicultural global phenomenon. And I love the fact is that he had his sister on the stage with him, and he was in tears because it was really great to see, because because a lot of people thought that rap and hip hop was just going to be a passing fancy and a fad, but look what happened. Here it is. Like you said, we have classes on hip hop. We have hip hop, fashion and style, and giving lectures on hip hop, and a lot of R&B singers, are starting to, recruit rappers to rap on their records, and they even incorporated hip hop styles and producers, to give their music an edge.
Right. And how you mentioned rappers and singers collaborating, think about prior to 85, 86, rap and R&B were pretty much separate. The only instance prior to, I want to say, Full Forces production to where you had rapping and singing was there was a record by Renee and Angela, and they had Curtis Blow on the record. And I believe the record is called Save Me for Your Number One or something to that effect. Yes. So we could kind of sort of say that record was kind of like the first one to really have rap and R&B together, even though the production was very heavy R&B. But when Full Force came in, of course, later, Teddy Riley, Guy, and everything that came after, that was when the streets met the sweet, and it was just a good meshing and a good fit.
That's good, Jarrell, because I got some trivia for you. Did you ever hear Rick James' album Cold Blooded?
Yes.
Well, there's a song on the album called Pimp to Sip, and he actually had Grandmaster Melle Mel, rap on the song.
Mm.
That was like way before, because I remember my mother and my sister's father giving me the album for Christmas. And so he was telling me he schooled me about, Grandmaster Flash, if I was a group, Melle Mel was just a member. So Rick was one of the first ones you actually, have a rapper, rapping on the song.
Right. And then also too, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee Chaka Khan covered I Feel For You, which was originally done by Prince on the self-titled album, and I believe Melle Mel was on that as well. And also that record sampled Stevie Wonder's Fingertips, the little breakdown part was say yeah, that was sampled from Stevie Wonder's Fingertips.
Yeah, because Yes, because I still remember when they came out, and Shaka Khan has said that she said that when she first met Prince, Prince called her room pretending to be like Sly Stone. And so she was like, so he was out, he would tell her, she go into the studio and she's like, hello, I'm looking for Sly. He said, that's me. She said, who the hell are you? And she said that when she said she wanted to smack him, but while they was talking, his album was playing, and I Feel For You came on. So she said that she said she was going to record the song, but then when she found that Rufus, once was like, okay, tell her and the late Arif Marvin, listen, it's time to sell some records. So Shaka said that she was going to finally do the song. Now, I've learned that Arif had wanted Prince to come in and play guitar on the song, but it didn't happen due to schedule conflicts because he was still working on Purple Rain. Now, the harmonica part, Stevie actually did that the day he actually came right after Marvin Gaye's funeral and played the harmonica part. I mean, they did sample Fingertips, and they also he also did the harmonica. Now, Melly Mel, he recorded his raps like in Sugar Hill Studios in New York. Now, Arif said originally that little Shaka Shaka Khan intro was mainly it was a mistake because he was just trying to do some. He was doing the mix and he was checking the machine. We hear that Shaka Shaka Khan, and then he was like, "This is gonna be good." And Shaka said that when she came in the studio, she was like, "Whack." She said that she was like, I'm gonna live with this song for the rest of my." He said, "No, Shaka, it's going to be a hit." And it's a hit because she says that she's appreciative of the song's success. I mean, because that was a good thing too. The hit was, Shaka Khan, the siren of funk, doing something. And then I remember there was two videos. The original video, they featured, Shaka, just hanging out with her girls and they going to a strip club. They showed that video on Video Music Box. I'm sorry, literally Hot Tracks on Labor Day weekend. But then they did another video, to show breakdance, to get more of the younger crowd.
Yeah, I don't remember that alternate original version of the I Feel For You video. You mentioned that it was on New York Hot Tracks, which was hosted by Carlos De Jesus, who was on Disco 92 WKTU at the time. And it was around that time to where you had all these different regional music video shows to where you would kind of see versions of videos that probably didn't make it onto BET, or they went and shot a more network friendly version of the video at a later time in order to get more mainstream nationwide airplay. And you mentioned Sugar Hill Records, where Melly Mel cut his vocals on I Feel For You, and this was out of New Jersey, and how New Jersey always tends to get looked at as the rear-headed stepchild when it comes to hip-hop, because it's pretty much New York or nothing. But when you think of New Jersey, you think of, like mentioned, Sugar Hill Records and how Sylvia Robinson, think about the time frame where 70s, a black woman, head of the record label, pretty much being her own boss, putting rap on record, and then everything to spawn after that, which was, Naughty by Nature, who she had a hand in helping earlier in their careers when they were originally known as the New Style. I believe they put out one record or so under that name before they switched to Naughty by Nature, had the success. And then, of course, the late Apache, Queen Latifah, Flavor Unit, rest in peace, DJ Mark 45 King, and how, New Jersey definitely deserves more than just being looked at as just the Garden State and the number 2 in hip hop for the contributions that they gave to us.
I agree with you, because there's a lot of talented artists from Jersey. Because when Queen Latifah, came out, because my family used to shop in Jersey as a kid. So the fact is that, and plus a lot of celebrities, they live in Jersey. The fact is that you have Queen Latifah, you have Mark 45, and you have Naughty by Nature, and Redman. They was actually adding on to the culture by letting them know, hey, yes, we're across the water and stuff, but we got stories to tell. We can spit just as hard as well. And also, Latifah's business partner shocked him. The fact is that he was able, to form a management company in Jersey. That really shows. So because there's a lot of artists from Jersey because like you say, they talk about New York, but Jersey has a lot of talent because they have a lot of house artists. Is come they have clubs out there where they play hip hop and house music.
And also coming out of Jersey, you have Lords and Underground, Poor Righteous Teachers, Today, Riff, and we could go on and on about all the other acts that come from the Garden State. And I want to go back to Full Force and how they, Bowlegged Lou, Shy Shy, Baby Jerry, Paul Anthony, B Fine, and Kurt T. They took the melodies of R&B with the street sounds of hip hop, merged them together to create a sound for themselves and for other acts such as Lisa and the Cold Jam, Cheryl Pepsi Riley. And they later went on to do their work with pop acts such as Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, and Britney Spears. Now, speaking of Britney, she just released her book not too long ago, and she airs it all out. Now, the reason why I bring up Full Force and Britney was that in her early years, before I guess when she first signed the Jive, and before Hit Me Baby One More Time became a hit, she did some stuff with Full Force that I believe wasn't released on Hit Me Baby, but she did one record with them that was called Love to Hurt Away. It pretty much sounded like an updated version of All Cried Out, and how, a lot of those acts, Britney, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, got with Full Force to get that R&B flavor, and it worked so well to where, I'm sure Full Force is still eating off All I Have to Give to this day.
Yeah, Full Force definitely. Now they need to be honored, not with the Rock Hall of Fame, Soul Train Music Awards, BET Awards. They need to honor them because the fact is that I still remember seeing the 12th inch of Roxanne. I remember seeing, the credits, UTFO Full Force. I didn't know anything about who he was until I saw the videos with Lisa Coach Jam. And then when I saw Full Force, it was like, wow, these are muscular guys and stuff with, with Jerry Curls. The fact is that they sang and they can play and they were musicians. That's the thing that really makes Full Force very unique. The fact is that they, all of them sing, they write, produce, and they play instruments. So I think that's what really, set them apart, because the fact that they was doing R&B, hip hop, house, and salsa. Because I actually learned that the George brothers, their parents they have Caribbean descent, because their mother was born in the Dominican Republic, and they have that Black, Asian, American, Latin thing, and one of their cousins is from Trinidad, so of course they have that's where they come with the melodies that they do. And plus, they actually studied the greats like the Motown, the productions, and Philly Soul. And that's the thing about Full Force. The fact is that and even watching they unsung, how they actually brought exotic dancing into music, which was something they do. Because later on you see like Genuine, Usher, they up performing, doing like strip T shows. In fact that the learn that Full Force, and they also was promoting physical fitness, because they videos you saw Paul Anthony, working out, and they actually was promoting physical fitness and rock dancing, and they were showing that Black musicians, we can produce all types of music. Now talking about about the White Acts. Now in the mid 90s, they decided to take a break, and then when they wanted to work with these Black artists, it was some of the AR. They come and say, "Oh, you those motherfucking niggas with Jerry curls, right?" Now, mind you, Full Force cut out their Jerry curls back in 1989, and that's when they would say, "Okay, you know what? Fuck this. We're gonna go work with the White Acts." And what happened when they started hitting gold and platinum with Backstreet Boys, Britney, and NSYNC, and other groups? That's when those same Black, executives who tried to look at them as has-beens was up here calling, ringing it. They were ringing it. They was blowing their two age up, and they paged their cell phone off. Hey, come produce my acts.
Yeah, because when I interviewed Bowlegged Lou, he had told me the story about how they came up with All I Have to Give. It was where they were kind of like on the downside on their recording, and I believe he or one of the other members went to Barry Weiss, who was head of Jive, and asked, "Hey, do you have some acts for us that we can do some stuff on?" And this was before they really popped in the US. I believe they had maybe one or two singles out here, but they were huge in Europe at this point. And they got Backstreet Stuff, and I believe Baby Jerry had All I Have to Give. And Bolega Lou told them, smash it. And it became a big international smash. Backstreet Boys opened up the pop lane for full force, and how, like I said, that record they're still eating off on to this day. They also worked on Rihanna's Music of the Sun album very early, went before she became the big international star, and then also they had a hand in Nicki Minaj too early in her career, because she was in a rap group called Hood Stars, I believe. In that group also was Bow-Legged Lou's son. So, they had a hand in, helping Nicki out early in her career, but definitely Full Force should be mentioned more, honored, revered for what they done in the music industry. And another act that the real ones know, but not too many mainstream people don't. But this act from Staten Island, one of the first ones to really combine rap, hip hop. The original was hip hop. The original was called the Force MCs. Rest in peace, DJ Dr. Shock. And then ended up changing their names to the Force MDs. And of course, they ended up getting signed to Tommy Boy, and then we all know the success that they had after that. So, what was your take on the first time you hearing Force MDs?
I remember, I was in elementary school when I remember hearing the radio and then that intro and then that let me the harmony and the rapping. It was like it caught me off guard. It really caught me off. It really caught me off guard because hearing singing and rapping, and then seeing how some of the kids would like break dance, and they would break dance and do like the body pop into the rap pop. But then when they came out with the ballad tears, that's when I was like, oh my God. And then watching this song Itching for a Scratch, and I think the Force MVs, they really appealed to, to kids who sang and who got rap. They was basically showing that, you can do both. Now, I think it's one of my favorite songs they did was when they linked it with the Fat Boys, and they actually had the Gilligan's Island theme song. That was a huge radio hit. I mean, a lot of kids will always be singing that song and rapping, and then before 10 look, and a lot of fans was even saying that they don't know why Tommy Boy did not release it as a single or do a video.
For what song?
It was the Force MDs meet the Fat Boys.
Oh yeah, I remember that record. I have that on the Let Me Love You Full Force MD's Greatest Hits album, and how, the Fat Boys, another group rap wise that should be recognized more, especially, Prince Marky D, rest in peace, for his songwriting and his production, that he did with Corey Rooney. Of course, they did Real Love for Mary J. Blige, Menagerie, Prince Marky D solo stuff with Prince Marky D and the Soul Convention off the Free album. Then, of course, he put out Love Daddy. And I just think a lot of people with Prince Marky D was still stuck on seeing him as, you're the guy from the Fat Boys, from Disorderlies. And, even though he had hits as a producer and songwriter, a lot of people still want to see him as one of the Fat Boys.
Well, that was the thing because I remember when the Fat Boys came, launched their music. Now, when he started producing Mary J. Blige, I did not know like his name, the real names at the time. But then when he did his solo album, I was really amazed to see that, that he grew, because you saw that, it was like the big shock, like, oh shit, he was with Fat Boys. But the fact is that he was rapping as an adult. It wasn't like the comic rap. He was rapping about real life issues, especially the song that he did about speaking out against domestic violence. I think that's when he was able to really shed the Fat Boy image.
Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people, for some reason, they would always confuse him and Heavy D, because I remember when I first heard Tripping Out, I thought it was a Heavy D record.
Really?
Yeah, now mind you, I was 6, 7 years old at the time when Tripping Out came out. But when you kind of hear like the rhyme style and everything, kind of has a similar thing, with Heavy D. That's another rapper whose career I felt was undervalued and glossed over. Should have had a sitcom like Will, and I think MCA Uptown didn't really tap into his crossover appeal like they should have, because Heavy D had crossover appeal.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, the fact is that Heavy D he crossed over to the pop by being stuff. I mean, women love him because I remember when I was in college, I had a guidance counselor. She actually was a white woman from Ohio who was like, her name was Dr. Perdue, one of my favorite counselors out there. She was talking about, she was into black music. Some of her favorite acts was the Whispers. And she said, Rashawn, I love that Heavy D video. Is it good to you? I love the I love the push. I love the scene with the woman in the bathtub. And I just love how these guys are so good looking and so classy. And this is coming from a white woman from Ohio. Another thing too about the crossover thing about when you talk about Heavy D the group, I mean DJ ADF, talented writer, producer. He doesn't get props for that. And I actually learned that he produced a song Tyrese's 2003 album, which I call the album that with Tyrese, I call it Tyrese's Soca, his Wild Oats album. And we have produced a song for that. And then we had like G with Stevie Roy, talented dancers. They were able to, dance in sync. And they always had a thing where when they dance, you could tell that the fact that they came with choreography and they was in sync. Now, it was sad that when Trouble T-Boy had passed away, and I know that it was hard for G Wiz to carry on. But the fact is that was a group, and I still don't understand why the VH1 has not given this group, they have not honored Heavy D Boys. It's a fucking total disgrace. I mean, and one thing about Heavy D we can also mention is that his flow, because he was a Jamaican, his flow was very versatile. And the fact is that he did songs with Michael and Janet, and then when he wanted to show his Jamaican roots, he got with Supercat. And Heavy D's also a talented songwriter producer as well.
Yeah, because when he always did that, that's where you get that Caribbean influence with him being Caribbean, the whole toasting, the da dee da dee 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 da dee da 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 what I come out to play. Hey, that whole vibe, and so that's one thing we can't ignore with hip hop is that the influence of the islands, with Kool Herc being from Jamaica, Heavy D's Caribbean roots, Biggie Caribbean roots, I believe KRS-One Caribbean roots. So pretty much, if it wasn't for those folks immigrating over to the U.S., we wouldn't have this.
Oh yeah, man. We got and Sandy Pepper Denton of Salt and Pepper. She's from Jamaica, and my great grandmother was my maternal great grandmother was from Barbados.
Wow. So what is it that you think it is about the island culture that really resonates with people, especially, 90s dance hall with Supercat, Sprague Benz, Mr. Vegas, Nika, we could just go on and on. So what is it about that style that really gets people up and going? Yellowman, Mad Cobra, Mad Lion.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned it, because like I said, even though my great grandmother was from the island, she migrated to the States when she was little. So I was not really raised, with that Caribbean culture, but I would say that to them it was different because a lot of Caribbean, people of Caribbean said they was actually moving to New York, Jersey, Connecticut, in the South. So I guess that when it came to the music, when you hear something different, hearing people, speak and rap and sing with the accent and, with their lingo and the style, it was like, it captivated them. And the fact is that in the dancing, a lot, seeing like, the men grind the women, with the pom-pom shorts and doing the butterfly and, those reggae parties. And I think it really helped it was sort of like showing that there are blacks, there was black people that was from the Islands and stuff. They had something to say, and for them to bring it into the culture, into music, it really helped educate. It was really a form of education.
Right. And gonna talk a little bit about Guy's debut album and how it was coming off of Make It Last Forever, which came out in '87, and the Guy's debut album came out in '88. You're familiar with the record "You Could Call Me Crazy" off of the debut album for Guy, right?
Yeah, that's my all-time favorite song by Guy.
Yeah, and you know that's I'll Be Sure on the backing vocals, right?
I learned about that, I learned about that years later because when I was in high school, I used to work in the library and I was a junior. One of the coworkers, she was a senior. She grew up in the Satan Project, and we was just talking about music. So she was the one that gave me a sort of a hint of what happened because she was saying that, because the next day she bought the tape cover, and I'm like, so that's how I learned about Timmy. So basically, the story that she told me at that time was, it was like, Teddy, people was in Teddy's ear, super him up. And that's why that was one of the reasons why Timmy left. And a lot of people thought that it was actually Teddy singing lead on You Can Call Me Crazy, because they didn't know the situation with Timmy at the time. A lot of people thought it was Teddy Riley singing lead on You Can Call Me Crazy.
No, because when I interviewed Timmy Gatlin, it was pretty much to where, Mr. Griffin, Gene Griffin, he was one of those guys you didn't want to cross wrong. And, once questions were asked by, hey, what's this in the contract? Was that in the contract? Timmy exited, and then in came Damian Hall. Now, when I interviewed Kyle West, I asked him about that record since Al B was on the backgrounds, and he had told me that that was originally supposed to go on in effect mode. But what ended up happening was Gene Griffin ended up taking that song back to put it on Guy's album, and they still kept Al B on the backing vocals because they didn't have time to recut it, because obviously it was one of those records that they cut before Timmy exited because his lead vocals were on the album. And then when it came time to release Guy's album, Timmy had already left by that point, but the album had already been shipped out. So they didn't have time to do a reshoot of the album cover to include Damon. So that's why if you look at Guy's album cover, that's why it's Aaron, Teddy, and Timmy.
Well, yeah, because like I said, that's something like I said, because I didn't know the story at the time. My friend, she told me one different story, but then like throughout the years, listening, to what happened then, and that's the thing that that's how I first learned about you when you interviewed Timmy Gatlin, with Timmy Gatlin, I was like, this was like the mystery man. It's like, what happened. And I think the fact is that Timmy he still was producing and writing for other artists, but he also like kept a low profile. And I think he just probably waits the right time to tell his side of the story. But I also want to say that just when God should be when they start to honor God, they should give him some type of award as well, because I mean he's a co-founding member. And I loved how when I see how Damon, when he does certain shows, he does give his props, because there was a group called I think it was Hamilton Park. They remade Piece of My Love. And they said we're gonna give a shout out to to all the members of God.
Mm-hmm. And it was something you had said backtracking to the Spinners. You mentioned that Harry, he's the only original member living of the Spinners, and it got me thinking how Otis Williams, last living original member of the Temptations, and Abdul Duke Fakir, only living original member of the Four Tops, and how we need to still honor these groups while they're still here, especially since we only have one surviving original member left, because we're losing folks from that era left and right.
That is true. Yes, that is true about about these groups, because a lot of people say that the Spinners, I mean, the fact that the Spinners got a start of Hollywood Walk of Fame early in their career should have made the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame realize that, we got to put this group in. Another group I want to add that I'm tired of getting distracted is the Marvelettes. Now, recently, Kathleen Anderson Schaffner, who was the original Marvelette, she stayed until the group disbanded. She passed away in September, so the only original member is Juanita Callan Motley. Juanita had left early in her career due to exhaustion and health issues with her traveling. So she retired. And then there was a quartet, and then with Georgia Tillman, she left because of sickle cell anemia and lupus. Now, see the Marvelous, they gave Motown their first no one pop hit. And one thing I got to say about what happened after they disbanded, I learned that Smokey Robinson actually he wanted to do a business with this businessman named Larry Mashak. And it didn't go well. So basically, to pay off the debt, Smokey gave him ownership of the Marvelettes name without even contacting the original member. So he had a bunch of fake Marvelettes performing for years, and these heifers are going on saying, "Oh, we did this song in '61," and it's like you wasn't even around. So that's why it was hard for, even though the Marvelettes had retired and Georgia died, Gladys Horton, who founded the group, she had to even perform as Gladys Horton or a guest star. So Mary Wilson of the Supremes, who was my show, may she rest in peace, she decided that she was tired of the imposter groups because they was having like fake Supremes and even like a fake Sam and Dave, even though Dave passed away. So she went to Congress and helped get a bill passed called the Truth and Rock Act. And that Truth and Rock bill has been passed in several states, including Las Vegas, and it says that in order for anybody to use a group's name of a past group, you have to have at least one original surviving member. If you don't have an original surviving member, you cannot call yourself by the group's name. You have to say tribute or reveal, or you or the group and the venue can get sued and shut down.
Yeah. And that's kind of like the tough thing when you still have like these legacy acts still out touring and you don't have the surviving member. And like you said, you have to have it to where one surviving original member or you can't use the name at all.
Right.
And speaking of, original members, back to New Edition, that's another group that is not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when for them to get inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So, their time is coming where they're going to get their induction in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I mean, we saw what they did with the New Edition story when that came out in 2017, the numbers that it brought BET, the upcoming residency in Vegas, there's a high demand for the tickets, and how anytime when any comes to your town, it's any heartbreak all the way around. So when do you think it'll be the time when Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, Ralph, and Johnny finally get that call, say, hey, you guys are inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Soon. And I would say that the fact is that they perform, all 6 members perform a tribute to the Spinners. I mean, the fact is that for them to perform a tribute to the Spinners, and hearing Bobby sing, "Could It Be I Fall in Love," and it showed that Bobby got range, and then Ricky doing the smooth crooning, and Ralph singing, and they did Rubber Band Man. Oh, you hear, Mike Bivins, Rubber Band, hearing Mike Bivins with his bass ad-libbing and Johnny Gill. And for them to have the current member of the Spinners, come and join them. That was his way of passing the torch and letting them know you're next.
Right. And like I said, to think about how, they come from that school of the Spinners, Shy-Lites, Delphonics, Temptations, Blue Magic, The Whispers, and Brooke Payne, who had a group that he was in, A Touch of Blue, and pretty much passed on what he did with that group and the Untouchables. You can catch my interview with Daryl Drumgold of the Untouchables, and to just see how this 5-man group out of Boston, later 6, Johnny from DC, pretty much changed the face of pop, R&B, and how still 40 plus years later, they're still packing out, still touring.
That's amazing. The fact that New Edition can still tour as a group and as separate acts, because Velvet DeVoe just released a single with Reverend Run and Run DMC. And I think that Ralph was saying, he would put on his Facebook page that he's having something coming out pretty soon. So we don't know whether it's going to be a solo single or an album. And you in the Michael Bivins documentary that came out, that was really a dope documentary because we got a chance to learn about Biv.
Yeah, I was about to ask you about that. Yeah, definitely a dope documentary. A lot of things I didn't know about him and how, it's funny how you think one thing is going to take you out of the hood, but another thing comes in and does the same thing you wanted to do with that original goal. Because originally Mike was all about basketball, so ball is life. That was him. But once he linked up with the fellas, it became where this singing and dancing is gonna get me out of Roxbury, out of Orchard Park.
Oh yes, and the fact is that he still incorporate basketball with singing and dancing because 30 years ago, Bill with the Bro came out with a single called "Above the Rim" off their album Hootie Man, and they talked about, and they talked about, I mean, Ronnie was rapping about like the sport, and then Bill was talking about what really goes about how it is in the hood, where you come, it's like this. People they think because I'm short, and he goes, brothers can't stick me. He was just saying that, people thinking that I'm short, but I can still, ball, we can go out there, I'll bet you some money. I will whip your ass. I score, I shoot my 3-pointers, take the money, and I'm taking your girl too.
Mm. And what's your thoughts on George Michael getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, to see Andrew Ridgeley, former bandmate from Wham, do the induction speech, and then the performances with Adam Levine doing Faith, Miguel doing Careless Whisper, and Carrie Underwood performing One More Try in honor of the late George Michael?
Well, seeing Andrew induct his best friend was very emotional because the fact is that they started. In fact, the fact that Andrew was the one that saw the talent in George and told him that he helped him gain confidence and self-esteem. And then when he did their farewell concert, George hugged him and thanked him. And now Jarrell, you notice that like most lead singers of group, they so focus on their solo careers that it's hard for them to even talk about reuniting with their old bandmates.
Mm-hmm.
Well, George Michael, when he really wanted a Wham reunion with Andrew, he wanted to reunite with Andrew and the rest of the fans in the original band as a way of, I think, to say thank you. But Andrew was like, listen, okay, I make my money off of the first album and Careless Whisper. I have a good life, so I don't want to go back on the road. But I think that, George probably wanted to do it more because it was a way of saying thank you, and he wanted to do something for the fans. So the fact that George Michael became a huge international star, for him to actually, ask his friend, just do this one last time. And I think that George probably was disappointed, but I think he had to respect his friend's wishes.
Right. And then looking at the Wham documentary that came out on Netflix, you got to give Andrew massive props to know that, hey, I'm here. This guy, he has it. And I'm not going to be the one to be the anchor to hold him down and have him take a back seat because my ego's hurt because he's the one and I'm not.
That's true because Andrew even said that his father wanted him to go to university, which they call in England college, go to university, get a degree, and get a job. But then when he started making the money, then he's like this. He was like this. Dad, you want me to go back to school now? His father's like, I'm proud. Because I actually learned that from the first album, they both wrote the songs, but then when it came to make it big, they put it in Michael's hands to write, produce. But George, one thing about George, he also made sure that Andrew, had some like ad-libs. But when it came, because Careless Whisper was written when they were 16, it didn't make the first album. So George made it very clear, Careless Whisper is going to go on this album. And that's how Andrew is eating off that because Tamia actually covered it on her solo debut album back in 1998.
Yeah, and I didn't notice until the documentary that he had cut another version of Careless Whisper George did with Jerry Wexler down in Muscle Shoals at Fame Studios. And good thing he scrapped that version and went with the version that we all know and love today. And then also too, if you listen to the Make It Big album, you can definitely tell the heavy influence Motown had on George Michael with the writing and the production. Because if you listen to Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, it's very Motown-esque with its melody, with its structure. Wake me up before you go go. It sounds like a Motown record.
And also Everything She Wants. That's one of my favorite Wham songs. Dun, 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 and Andrew. Boom, and that bass. Boom, you. Right. And George, he was really good at it. Now, one thing I liked about George Michael is that when he teamed up with Aretha Franklin for I Knew You Were Waiting for Me.
Now, the unsung hero of George Michael and Wham, Dion Estes, rest in peace. And, you know, him being from Detroit, and I believe his high school music teacher was James Jamerson from the Funk Brothers in Motown. So there's that connection right there. And when Dion Estes released his Spell album in 1989 and the song Heaven Help Me, you know, when I first heard it, I was like, that definitely sounded like an outtake from Faith that George said, hey, Dion, you want to cut this?
Well, I gotta check this album too. Also, George Michael recorded a duet with Jody Watley on her solo debut album.
Oh, really?
Called Learn to Say No. Now, Jody Watley had revealed, like years later, they asked her, because she said that her and George wanted to release it as a duet, because Jody had said that when she let Shalimar, she was in England, when they did the Do You Know It's Christmas, her and George Michael became good friends, and he was a fan of Shalimar and her voice. So he said, listen, when you get your record deal, I'm going to produce a song for you. So she was like, cool. When she said, I got the deal and stuff, you still want to produce? He said, no, I got something better. Let's sing a duet. And Jody said that the reason why it didn't become, it was politics with Columbia Records. They didn't want that single to be released because the fact is that it was going to be released on the MCA. So that's why Learn to Say
Competition.
No. And Jody has said that they would have did a killer fierce video for that song.
Almost kind of like sound like the same situation with Tell Me I'm Not Dreaming with Jermaine, because Michael was on it, but I believe it was where Epic wouldn't clear it for Aerosmith to release it because you don't want to have Jermaine outshine the King of Pop, who was also your brother. But as we saw in Janet's documentary, it kind of felt to me, at least, like Michael always wanted to include the others in everything, but it was where folks were in the ears and different folks in the camp was trying to keep everybody separate, because it's still mind-boggling to me that She off of 2300 Jackson Street was not released as a single. Why?
Well, we're going to get into that too, but as far as Tell Me I'm Dreaming, because Jermaine in his book, he actually said that when he got to deal with Arista, he actually reached out to Mike, because Mike was like, what are we going to do? He said, no, we're going to be singing and producing. So he said that Jermaine said that Michael did produce. So I guess that Michael decided not to take producer's credit, because sometimes Michael would do that, to avoid being overshot in humility. But the fact is that when they performed it on the Victory Tour, everybody was saying that was a highlight. And about She. I mean, even Arsenio Hall love song. I mean, that epic. I mean, I look this way. Whenever an artist who hasn't done an album yet, they coming out with new material, you have to be able to hit something for the clubs and the pop radio, but you also got to be able to hit, because the New Jack Swing was blowing up epic at the time. She could have been a major hit because the fact is that Teddy Riley was producing it and the Jacksons came out with it. That was the first song I heard from 2300 Jackson Street was She. Now that song could have it became a huge radio hit in New York. And I was saying that if I was working at Epic at the time, I would have called it, because they would tell me what you want to do with the Jacksons. I was the name of the conference call is, listen, what y'all need to do is y'all need to perform at Showtime at the Apollo. I know your history. What you can do is y'all should do Nothing That Compares to You, and then do She, because Teddy Riley grew up in those projects. Perform She live.
Yeah, yeah. Randy's vocals were killer on that record. I mean, the Randy and the Gypsies album, another underrated album, but that's a whole nother story for a whole nother topic. And also, you kind of say that record probably had Michael thinking like, maybe I should link up with this guy. And it wasn't until '91 that was when we got Dangerous. And speaking of Michael, and we're gonna close out on this. Next month, they're going to be releasing a documentary on the 40th anniversary of Thriller and how that album changed the face of pop music and is still one of the best-selling albums to this day. So your thoughts on the impact and legacy of Thriller 40 years later?
That album, I would say, Jerome, that album was when that was the album that Michael really took seriously and was letting you know, okay, you slept on me before. You're gonna fucking put some respect on my name. The fact is that Michael, because I did a tribute to the album on my podcast, and when I did that, Michael, the songs that he did songs about drama, romance, and then somebody going after somebody's girl. Then he did like something about horror with Thriller, and what he did with Thriller, which I realized that he was basically adding like taking metaphors of like horror and romance, and then he did songs about social conscience like Beat It. He's talking about about Vows and Billie Jean. He's talking about deceptive women, which is a thing that Michael has always sang about as adult deceptive women. Then you have Human Nature, and and about romance. So Michael Jackson was able to do songs that was very like about songs that had different topics and themes that was unheard of. And we got to talk about the videos. The fact is that Michael saw that, and hey, videos is happening. So I have to do videos, but I can't. I don't want to just do the typical doing a two-step. I have to be able to be ahead of the game.
Yeah, those videos, especially the Thriller video, was viral before viral because I can remember it being talked about where when it debuted, it was an event where MTV played it so many times, and it was where you pretty much had to stop what you were doing to see that video. And with that album, it pretty much took him from being a superstar to being a global superstar. He was already global, but this took it over the top because when you look at that album, it was clear from the giddy up that his main focus was pop, 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 because he felt Off the Wall should have gotten the pop recognition, but it was just regulated to being in the Black, or at the time soul category. And let's face it, the industry is dirty, racist, and they think Black artists are not intelligent. Shout out to Jan Winter. But Michael broke down those barriers and those stereotypes, and Walter Yetnikoff forced MTV's hand and said, look, you're going to play this video, or else I'm taking the whole Columbia CBS library off the channel. And
that was gangster right there. That was a gangster boss move right there.
Yeah, that was definitely a cold move on that. And do you have any shout outs you want to give before we conclude this interview, bro?
Well, I want to give a shout out to you. Thank you, for inspiring me to grow and for being on the show. Definitely give a shout out to my family and to the Spinners, George Michael, and Missy Elliott Coolherc for being Dutch Rock Hall of Fame. Shouts to like those who support me, and to everybody who supports the Professor's Lounge, and those who are pursuing goals and aspirations. Go for it. Don't let anything prevent you from pursuing your goals and aspirations. Continue to strive for excellence.
And where can folks listen to the Professor's Lounge?
You can check the Professor's Lounge out at a news station. It's called Hear This /the Professor's Lounge. I'm gonna do is I'll post a link into your page because it's a hard spelling, and you can check out my blog, the Professor's Lounge .wordpress.com.
All right, and you can catch this interview wherever you stream and on YouTube at youtube.com/Beyond the Album Cover. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big thank you once again to my good friend, the Professor. Thank you for coming back on once again, bro.
Anytime.
Yes, sir.